So we're going to be sharing about our hypoglycemia experiences and raising awareness about it. So with Lucas here, we just completed a challenge, of course trekking here in Costa Rica. Going into that challenge, did you have any hypos or any concerns about hypos during the challenge at all?
Going into any challenge, any athletic thing, especially in the humidity and heat, hypos are always on your mind. So yeah, I think my #1 priority throughout the whole trek was to prevent and reduce the hypos, which I did pretty much until the last day. And the first 2 days were with a CGM, and that was a continuous glucose monitor, and that kind of made it really easy to be a neurotic checker, but that neurotic checking helps to maintain and prevent lows and catch it at 130 before you get to 70 and you're hiking and you're sweating and you're starting to lose it.
So you're not normally on a CGM then?
No, I had a pretty bad experience as a kid like 15 years ago with the CGMs. I think they're a great tool, but for my brain, I trust my body's sensation of lows and highs less and rely on checking my phone constantly. And I don't really like that. I've had it for 25 years and have always had low blood sugar awareness and high blood sugar awareness, I think because of playing sports. Because when I'm out of range, it affects me athletically, and I kind of have always known that. And a CGM is great, but I think it has taken away the tool of being in touch with my body's sensation.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think a lot of people might feel the same about that. I think you're very lucky if you can get a CGM. Of course, it goes without saying that it helps, but perhaps you do lose your self-awareness. Yeah. How is your own hypo awareness?
It's pretty good. I think I start to feel low around 70, 80. By pretty good, I think it always changes. As a kid, I would always have some bad lows. I probably have now maybe one a week, but as a high schooler playing sports every day, 6 days a week for 3 or 4 hours a day, I'd probably drop into the 40s or 50s at least 3 times a week.
Really?
Sometimes 3 times in a practice. So,
so what do you do in that situation? You're going down very low, 40s, 50s. In the UK, we do it a bit different. I guess the language is different there, but we're about what, 2 to 3 millimole.
Right.
So that's very low. What do you do?
I think the biggest thing is to always plan for a low. My worst situations have been when, I had practice on Monday, was low on Monday, drank all my juice and forgot to fill up my bag of juice on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so on Tuesday, I'm like, oh crap, I don't have any juice left, so I'm not going to give insulin for lunch so I can be high the rest of the day and start practice at 350 and finish practice at 150, which also isn't a good strategy at all because you're 350 all day and don't really feel that great. But my biggest advice to, sports and low blood sugar management is as long as you prepare for lows, you're ready for lows. And when you forget to prepare for a low by having sugar or having your test stuff, that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah.
And then also like communicating your symptoms to your teammates, so they usually pick it up before you. When I played quarterback, my teammates would look at me when I'd say plays and they'd be like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, okay, I think I need to take some sugar. And then I think the hardest thing is, I was pretty good and got to play a lot, but my coaches would let me go get some sugar and then I could sub back in, but sometimes coaches are really scared to let their kids with diabetes come back in after they have a low.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of try to not to have low and then run high, and I don't think that's the best scenario either.
Do you ever feel that there's, with sports, a bit of discrimination towards people who are trying to get involved in sports clubs who, of course, live with diabetes compared to the rest of the teammates that don't? Do you ever feel there's not just discrimination, but a discomfort of any kind?
Oh, I would say both to discrimination and discomfort. I probably had more discrimination in college around my diabetes from the head coach than I did as a high schooler. I think because the college coach wanted to play his son over me and he was trying to find any excuse to not play me. So he's like, oh, you can't run, your blood sugars were high last practice. And I was like, I'm sorry, are you an endocrinologist? I don't think so. But as a 18-year-old standing up to a coach of 30 years who's that's a really disadvantaged situation to be in. My recommendation again is, use the power of your medical team with you. Have your talk with your doctor about, hey, how am I going to have this conversation with my coach? And then also bring your parents in, or your the team captains, and be like, hey, this is some real stuff I'm going through, and I don't want to be a pain, but I just want it to be known I need to be treated like everybody else. I have to do some things different, like check my blood sugar, take some juices, in between water breaks. And if I'm not going to sprint with everybody in that moment, I'm still going to make up my sprints after. I'm still going to work out the way that everybody else does. I actually think I work harder than other kids because people said I couldn't do it.
Yeah, motivate you.
And then, there's so many great athletes with type 1 diabetes. Jackie Robinson had diabetes.
Really?
I'm not sure which type, but I think he also took insulin. So, he's one of the best athletes the world's ever known. And I almost feel like it's diabetes is an excuse to discriminate where the coaches were already going to discriminate anyway. And they use diabetes as a shield to do it. So,
would you say where you're based, DASH, of course, you set up DASH Camp, which stands for Diabetes and Sports Health, is a big idea of DASH based around removing that discrimination, encouraging people to get involved in sports?
It's a part of it. It's not maybe the sole part. I think DASH is really to provide kids a place of trial and error that's safe, that's not where they're trying to compete for a starting position on the sports field. I felt as a kid I had to learn how to manage my diabetes at a high level while playing. And that's not the best place to learn how your body reacts to really intense workouts. So I wanted to create DASH as a safe place for kids to challenge their own bodies and how their blood sugars react, so that they can use those lessons to then give them the best chance to have a great sports career.
Great. And finally, final message for anybody who's ever had a concern or a fear even about going low, what would you tell a person?
Fear is natural. It means that you're trying to learn from an experience. Every low blood sugar, you should learn from it. Learn from what happened. What did you do before? Did you take too much insulin? Did you undercount or overcount your carbs? Was it a new environment, humid or dry heat? But fear is going to be there. But you can counter fear with preparation.
Yeah.
And I really think as a kid, I hated to check my blood sugar. I lied to my folks all the time. I was 120 for a month in a row. But I think the biggest thing is you got to check your blood sugars before practice, you got to check it in between, and you got to check after. And the goal should be to maintain in-range blood sugars the whole time, and not start high and finish low, or start low and finish high. I think overall this is a test of how do we maintain blood glucose in high stress situations, which can play into the job environment. You may not be able to, have time to eat, but you got to manage your blood sugars in the time of a deadline, and playing sports is just a new caveat to prepare people and give them skills to be successful in life.
Thank you, Lucas, and be sure to check out dashcamp.org online, and you can see more about the work of Lucas and what he's doing over in California. It's great to have you along.
Thank you, Gavin. Happy to be here.